just going to ask that everyone please silences their cell phones. That's the little button on the side that you click. Tonight, as you all know, we're doing this. Lo shomim? Tonight, we are doing this shiur, the Inui Nishmat Daniel ben Rafael, our beloved Jeru. The neshama should have an aliyah, the soul should be elevated, the family should have a nechama, a consolation, and all of the friends and all of the extended family as well. Now before we get started, tonight's topic is why bad things happen to good people. We wanted to choose something light, easy topic. This is what we came up with. And before we get started into the meat of it, there's a midrash that I have to show you. And it's a midrash that actually Rashi cites. By the way, if I speak too quickly, Anita pointed out my Portuguese is absolutely terrible. So if I'm speaking too quickly, deal with it. It says at the end of Parshas Bereshis that God is just fed up with humans. He's had enough. I mean, you've met humans. You understand what he was thinking at the time. And he says, I can't take it anymore. I am going to absolutely destroy them, wipe them out, and that's the beginning of the flood and the story of Noah, etc. But it says, Vayinachem Adonai ki asat adam ba'aretz. God regretted making man. Vayitatsev el libo. And he was sad. In his heart, he was sad. So, Rashi, on the spot, cites a midrash. The midrash says that, there was a certain heretic. And this heretic went up to Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha, who was a big rabbi, and said, Amar lo, he said, excuse me, I've seen your Jewish schools. I know what you guys teach. Do you not teach everybody that God knows the future? Don't you teach your kids that God knows the future? Amar lo, hey. He's like, yeah, of course, God knows the future. Absolutely. We learned that in Moramina's class. Amar lo. He says, excuse me. Vaksiv, it says, that God was sad. Well, I don't understand. Doesn't he know that it's on the schedule, that he's going to wipe out humanity? Doesn't he know that at 12:57 on Tuesday, he's going to hit the flood button and whoosh? So what do you mean? He's like, oh, I'm so sad. He knew it. It's on the sketch. Good question. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says back to him. Rabbi Yeshua says, tell me, you had a son once? You ever had a baby? You had a son? He's like, yeah. He says, well, what did you do? Samachti v'simachti tacherim. I was happy and joyous, and I made other people happy. I gave out cigars, donuts, sushi. Very happy. He says, I don't understand. Don't you know that the son is going to die one day? You don't know that? Don't you know that we all have that in common? So he says, what do you mean? Yeah, obviously I know that. B'shat chedva chedva, b'shat evla evla. In the time of joy, you should be joyous. In the time, God forbid, of grief and mourning, we grieve and mourn. It wouldn't be appropriate to have a son and to mourn. That doesn't make any sense. So Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says back to him, exactly. And God is the same way. Of course God knew that it was on the schedule that a flood would come. Of course God knew that he was going to wipe man off the planet Earth. B'shat chedva chedva. In a time that's appropriate for happiness, he was joyful. B'shat evla evla. And in a time that is appropriate for grief, he mourned. The reason that I say this is because if you are looking today for something that an answer that is going to make us not sad, you're barking up the wrong tree. There's no answer that takes away sadness, that takes away pain, that takes away hurt, that takes away grief. There's no such clarity. But the Talmud will offer us something. It will offer us understanding. And that's important. So just to frame it. So now into the meat. There is a Talmudic passage. It's a Gemara in Brachot. And the Gemara says as follows. When Moshe went up to Har Sinai, he goes up on the mountain because the Jews had made this golden calf. And I know you're thinking that's ridiculous. Why would Jews make a golden calf and bow down to it a few weeks after they spoke to God? I mean, God Almighty talks to you and he's like, do me a favor, don't make any idols, okay? If you don't make any idols, we're going to be great together. And then sure enough, boom, they make an idol because that's what Jews do. We haven't changed that much in 3,000 years. And God gets very angry and God says to Moshe, I'm going to destroy them. I'm going to wipe them all out, no more Jews, and I'll make a great nation out of you. You, Moshe, you will be the new paradigm of the Jews. And Moshe starts arguing with God. Please don't do it, please don't do it. And he begs for mercy. And in the end, he ends up getting us forgiveness, and God allows us to develop over the centuries. And it says that in that conversation, on top of the mountain, Moshe says to God, he asks him three things. He says, number one, do me a favor, God. I want you to put your Shekhinah, your divine presence, your holy presence in the Jews. Put your presence in Israel. That's number one. Number two, don't put it anywhere else. Only in Israel. And number three, Hodieni na derachecha. Show me your ways. Show me your ways. What does that mean? He's asking God for, like, show me your moves. How do you dance? How do you shoot a three-pointer? What does that mean? What does show me your ways mean? So the Talmud says as follows. Hodieni na derachecha. Show me your ways. Amar lefanav. Moshe said to God, Ribono shel olam, Master of the world, mipnei ma yesh tzadik v'tov lo, v'yesh tzadik v'ra lo. Why are there tzadikim, a tzaddik, a righteous person, v'tov lo, and everything's good for him, and there's tzaddik v'ra lo, and there's a tzaddik and bad things happen to him. Rasha v'tov lo, there are evil people living great lives, Rasha v'ra lo, and evil people living terrible lives. That's what Moshe asks God. That's his question. Why are there tzaddikim, but bad things happening to them? Now, obviously this is the Talmud, so we're going to get some major wisdom. It's going to lay on you some major wisdom. It's going to blow your mind with clarity. It's going to make perfect sense. You're going to feel all better. You know what the Talmud says? Answer number one. Well, tzaddik v'tov lo, when you have a righteous person and everything's good, tzaddik ben tzaddik. That's a tzaddik whose father was also tzaddik. Tzaddik v'ra, if you see a person who's really righteous and he's having bad things happen to him, that's tzaddik ben rasha. That's a tzaddik who's a righteous person and his father was a bad guy. Rasha v'ra, if there's a rasha, an evil person, and everything is going bad for him, he has the flu all the time with a runny nose, that's rasha ben rasha. That's an evil person, the son of an evil person. Rasha v'tov lo, and if there's a rasha and he never gets sick, he never has a runny nose, that's a rasha ben tzaddik. That's a rasha whose father was a tzaddik. Perfect, makes perfect sense. You can all go home now. I mean, seriously? That's the answer? Tzaddik ben tzaddik? If your dad's a good guy, then it'll be good for you, and if your dad's a bad guy, it'll be bad for you, regardless of your actions? That's crazy. That's insane. So the Talmud wakes up, and the Talmud's like, excuse me, does it not say that fathers will not be punished for the sins of their sons, and sons will not be punished for the sins of the father? Doesn't it say that in the Pasuk, in the Torah? How can you say that you're suffering for something that your great-great-great-grandpa did? That doesn't make any sense. I was like, oh, okay, good point. Great. Well, then we're back to the question. So what's the answer? Don't worry, there's another answer. Oh, Baruch Hashem, a better answer. What's the better answer? Where it says, tzaddik v'tov lo. A tzaddik, that everything's good for him. Tzaddik gamur is a complete tzaddik. Complete tzaddik. Total tzaddik. Mwah! Moshe Rabbeinu. Never does anything wrong. So everything's good. Tzaddik v'ralo. A tzaddik who has bad things happen to him. Tzaddik she'eno gamur. I mean, he's a tzaddik, but there's one time he ate a cookie, he forgot to say Borei Minim Mizonot before the cookie, and then he didn't know if he had enough that he should say also Bracha Achrona, and therefore, he one time stubbed his toe. Rasha v'tov lo. A rasha who has good things happening to him. Rasha she'eno gamur. He's a bad guy, but he's not solamente malo. Every once in a while, Hitler gives the bum $1 when he walks into CVS. So he's a horrible person, but he doesn't like change in his pocket. It can get annoying. So he takes it out because it makes so much noise. The change, it makes the noise. So he takes it out and he gives it to the guy, okay. So because of that, he gets a little bit good. And then Rasha v'ralo, an evil person who always, again, with the nasal drip, that's Rasha Gamur, total evil person. Marvelous. Those are the first two answers. I hope you're satisfied with the first two answers of the Talmud. Then the Gemara says, Upliga ad Rabbi Meir. They argue with Rabbi Meir. You know what Rabbi Meir says? This is crazy. I know it's crazy. Rabbi Meir says, well, God said no. Moshe asked for 3 things. God gave him 2 and said no on the 3rd one. So when Moshe says to God, please Please, teach me. Why do bad things happen to good people? God's like, no. Amazing. Amazing. That's what... Okay. But the Gemara is not done. The Gemara is not done. This is an argument with a fourth rabbi who says no. He did tell him. Because after all, it says in the verse that Moshe saw God's picture. What does God's picture mean? It means that God did answer him. And he did tell him how come there's tzaddik v'ralo, a tzaddik who bad things, and a Russia with good things. But he doesn't bother to tell you how God actually explained it. So there are 4 answers in the Talmud, all of which are horrifically deficient. And I don't just mean deficient. These answers are pathetic. I mean, let's get real, right? Let's talk some truth to each other, shall we? Let's be honest with each other, because, we're friends, we're on the truth tree. The Gemara's first answer, that you're suffering for the sins of your great-grandfather? Are you serious? Come on. That's a pitiful answer. So then the Talmud gives a little bit of a better answer. At least it sounds a little bit better the first time you think about it. And it's like, well, Tzaddik Amor, a complete Tzaddik, that guy only has good. But Tzaddik, that's not perfect, he also has bad. Tell me something. Are there babies born with horrible diseases? Yeah. I mean, first of all, if there are any Ashkenazim in the room, you did a blood test before you got married. Because babies get horrible diseases if you're Ashkenazi. And also, we don't get to eat rice on Pesach. Well, tell me something. The baby was Tzaddik She'eno Gamur? Are you telling me that the baby did something wrong? Come on, bro. That's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a good answer either. So at least there's Rabbi Meir. Because Rabbi Meir's like, God said, no dice, I'm not going to tell you. Why not? Why didn't God say to Moshe, why I'm not going to tell you? At least give him some kind of insight. I mean, the man asked you a question. And seemingly Hashem really, really liked Moshe. That's what everybody says. That's what God says. So at least tell him why you're not going to explain anything. At least give some kind of a clarity, some kind of an understanding. And then there's the fourth answer. The rabbi's like, yeah, he did tell him. But you didn't say what he told him. So you're like, yeah, God gave him an answer. Fantastic. Does that help me? No, not a bit. Because it's not in the Talmud. That part was erased. It's a horrifically impossible to read piece of Talmud. Now, by the way, it's funny. So I'm talking to a former student, one of our alumni. He's in Penn now. And he's like, oh yeah, I saw that you were talking about this. I saw it on the Facebook. What are you going to talk about? I'm like, well, we're going to read the Talmud. He goes, oh, come on, Rabbi. That Talmud doesn't make any sense. I've seen that Talmud. You can't read that Talmud. That Talmud's terrible. That's what he said to me. You know why he said that? Because he's smart. Because he's smart. And he read the Talmud. And he knows that it doesn't make any sense at all. So he's like, you can't read that to people. It's crazy. I said, bro, let me ask you something. What do you think the likelihood that the Talmud is ridiculous? What do you think is that likelihood? I'm going to go with 0. But it sounds ridiculous. So you don't understand it, you mean? Okay, good. With that, we can help you. But in order to help, first we have to make a verse. That's what we do. There's another Talmud. The Talmud says in Menachot as follows. Another story, who'd have guessed, about Moshe on the mountain. It says Moshe goes up to the mountain. When Moshe, at the time that Moshe went up, all the way up into the cloud, what does he find God doing? He finds God sitting with little letters in the Torah and tying different configurations and squiggles on them. The crowns in the Torah, if you've ever looked at it inside of a Torah scroll, the letters are quite flowery. And on top of the letters, they have these little, they're called takim, which are crowns. It's very decorative. It's quite pretty. And Moshe's like, oh, that's cool, God, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? And God says, oh, I'll tell you, it's so exciting. Because in the future, there's going to be this guy named Akiva. Perhaps you've heard of him. We call him Rabbi Akiva, because that's his name. And this guy, Rabbi Akiva, is going to take these little crowns on top of the letters, and he's going to figure out so many things from these tiny, nuanced little crowns. And Moshe goes, wow, can I see him? Can you show me? And God says, sure. Chazor la'acharecha, turn around. turns around, and he's in Rabbi Akiva's class. He's in Shir, in the 8th row. And he hears Rabbi Akiva giving Shir. And Moshe's like, I don't understand what the heck this guy's talking about. He knows so much more than I do. It makes no sense. And Moshe says to Hashem, he says, God, I don't understand. You have someone like that, and you're giving the Torah to me? You have someone like Rabbi Akiva giving the Torah to me? And you know what Hashem responds? Shtok. Shtok. How do you say shtok in Portuguese?
Cala a boca.
Cala a boca. It says shut up. I mean, this is something that I tell my children not to say. You know, but God apparently is not that well behaved. And therefore, he says to Moshe, shut up. Kach ala b'machshava lefanai. That's how it played out before me in machshava, in my mind. That's how it came up in my mind. Well, thank you, God. That's a very descriptive answer. Now I totally understand what you're talking about. And maybe, by the way, don't ask God silly questions ever again. He gets rather upset. So then Moshe says, tell me, this guy's so cool. Like, what happens to him? What happens to him? Like, does he ever become famous? You know, does he, I don't know, what happens to him? God's like, oh, I'll show you. I'll show you. Turn around. Turn around. Moshe's like, oh, again, Moshe, he keeps looking away from the screen, apparently. Every time he talks to Moshe, God's like, turn around. Okay, fine. So he turns around, and what does he see? He sees the death of Rabbi Akiva. You know how Rabbi Akiva died? That's right, very badly. Well, it's not true. He didn't die very badly, but very painfully. William Wallace style. The Romans skinned him alive. And Moshe sees this. And Moshe's like, oh my God, this is the Torah, and this is the reward from the Torah? And what does God say? Karabaka! What was it? That. Shtok! Shut up! This is how it came up in thought before me. Oh, thank God everything's clear. Everything is so clear now. Why does God say shut up? It's not nice. Why does God keep saying to Moshe, turn around? What's the deal with that? Let's turn around. Well, you're in luck. The Talmud, first of all, does not ask why bad things happen to good people. It doesn't ask that. Maybe you noticed. It says, why do bad things happen to good people? Why do good things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen to bad people? Why do good things happen to bad people? Now, what is the difference, pray tell, between those 4 pieces of a question versus why do bad things happen to good people? You know what no one has ever called me up asking? Ever. I mean, I've been a rabbi for a while. None of my students have ever called me and said, Rabbi, I don't understand. It's not fair. Why do good things happen to bad people? No one's ever asked me that before. Why not? Because it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. If there's an awful person who wins the lottery, that doesn't pinch so much. But when an amazing person is in pain, that hurts. That you feel. Then you cry. And then you call. But what does that tell you? Moshe's question is not why bad things happen to good people. Moshe's question is, Hodieni na derachecha, show me your ways. I want to understand. We live in a world of cause and effect. That's our world. Every action has an equal and opposite reaction. We know this. We live in a cause and effect world. So please, God, explain to me why these levers, if you pull them this way, it has those effects. I would like to know. Why? Because if I know how the world works, I can take your nation and I can bring them to you, which is the whole point of what he's doing there in the first place. That's what he's asking. And do you know what the answer is? There's not one answer. There are several answers. Let's take another look at the Gemara. Let's try to understand what it's saying. So, go with me. Answer number 1, says the Gemara. You know, there's all sorts of reasons why bad things happen to good people and good things happen to bad people. Why don't we start with this? Tzaddik ben Rasha. Now, here's the thing. This is a thought experiment that this is a game. We're going to play this together because I can't give you enough of a flesh out of this particular idea without having you for another hour. But I want you to take my word for the following. When the Talmud talks about tzaddik and rasha, which people tend to think of as, a tzaddik is a very, very holy man, very religious, and he wraps the tefillin, and he learns Torah all day. And a rasha is a bad guy who eats, shrimp burgers on Yom Kippur. Yeah? Okay. That would be a highly unsophisticated understanding of what the Talmud means, because the term tzaddik does not mean pious or religious. The term tzaddik means correct. Correct. So when you think of tzaddik and rasha, do not think Baba Sali and Hitler. Think the Patriots and the Dolphins. That's what we mean. A tzaddik is someone who does the correct thing. When? Always. Always. Always makes the right move. Rasha always makes mistakes. These guys. Who's who? I think you know who's who. I think you know who's who. Now I'll show you when you look at the Gemara through those lenses, all of a sudden it starts to make a lot more sense. So let's start at the beginning. You say, well, how come bad things happen to people who are wonderful, who always make the right move? Always make the right move. I was like, what do you mean? Tzaddik ben Rasha. You don't think there are situations where you can always want to make the right move, but because of decisions that your parents made, you grow up in abject poverty, you grow up in a town that has awful violence, you don't have good opportunities because of decisions that were made before you? You don't think that that's true? I mean, where do you live? What planet are you from? Obviously that's true. Why do you have Rasha v'tovlo? Why are there people who make mistakes all the time? They do the wrong thing all the time. They never get it right, and yet everything's wonderful. Easy. Because their dad was Sam Walton. So yeah, they make the wrong move, but do you know how many of the wrong moves you can make before you go bankrupt when your dad is Sam Walton? Almost an infinite number of bad moves. Unless you're SoftBank, in which case one bad move or two bad moves. That'll do. But the point is, you got a little bit of a cushion. You don't think that your life is influenced by those around you and the parents and grandparents before you? Of course it is. Of course it is. Here, how's this one? Try this one on for size. Why are there crack babies? Why? Why are there crack babies? I'll tell you why. Simple answer. People take crack, people make babies. Crack babies. Not a question. But the baby didn't do anything. I know the baby didn't do anything, but you're asking me why that's a crack baby. That's why. That's why. Yeah, well, but that answer is insufficient. Because it only answers certain situations and certain anecdotes with certain data. You know what it doesn't answer? Why do bad things happen to people that have nothing to do with their environments? Didn't address that at all. Oh, that's good, because guess what? Answer number two. Answer number two. Tzaddik gamor, tzaddik she'eno gamor. A person who is correct nearly all the time, but not always. He's not totally correct all the time. And then, a rasha who has good things is a person who always makes a mistake, but one time. One time. You don't believe me? Let's rewind 1 year. The Dolphins are playing the Patriots. The Dolphins are playing the Patriots, and we know that the Patriots are tzaddik. They always do everything correctly all the time. They're not that talented. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. They don't have any talent on the team. What do they have? Methodology, precision, planning. Brady. Yeah, but that's what they have. That's what they have. They don't have stars. That's okay. They have process. They make the right move every time. Tzaddik she'eno gamor. Almost perfect, except for that little lateral play. That little lateral play. You'll steal one from the Patriots in the Miracle in Miami. You'll steal one. Tzaddik she'eno gamor. You make all the right decisions except you made one wrong one because you can't put Gronkowski to cover people who are fast. Oops. That's tzaddik she'eno gamor. So why did the Dolphins win that one? They're rasha she'eno gamor. They make the wrong move every single time. But even a blind squirrel finds a nut once in a while. That's good, right? That's it. Now, does that mean that the Dolphins were the better team on the field? No, the Patriots won the Super Bowl that year. Again. But that's what we mean when we say, Tzaddik Gamor, Tzaddik Sheino Gamor. Why do bad things happen to people who are almost always correct? The answer is because they're not always correct. Sometimes they make silly, silly errors, and those silly errors can make it bite you hard. Say, yeah, okay, that's good. That's good. That answers different situations that the first one did not answer, but it doesn't answer every situation. Because sometimes you don't make any mistakes. Sometimes you make no mistakes whatsoever. You made everything, every decision was perfect. And what happened? Bang! You got hit by lightning. You got hit by lightning. That's not because of something your parents did. And that's not because of a decision that you made. And that's not because some guy had it out for you. You literally got struck by lightning. What about that? Says Rabbi Meir. Answer 3. God said, Lo siento, can't help you. You can't know that. Do you know what the verse is? It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Do you know what the words that God says to Moshe are? Upanai lo yera'u. Ra'ita tachorai. You'll see my back. Upanai lo yera'u. You won't see my face. You'll see my back, you won't see my face. Can I tell you a secret? God doesn't have a back and God doesn't have a face. What do you mean you'll see my back, you won't see my face? What does that mean? You think maybe it has something to do with the fact that he keeps telling Moshe, the other Gemara, turn around, turn around, turn around? Hazor la'achorecha. Turn to your back. Same word. Wonder if it's connected. Rabbi Meir says, can't help you. Can't help you. And then there's the other rabbis like, no, he did help him. He did help him. In order to answer numbers 3 and 4, we have to understand the Gemara with Rabbi Akiva. Horrible Gemara. Seriously, it's painful to read. Again, Moshe goes, oh, who's this guy, Rabbi Akiva? I said, oh, let me show you. And he says, God, I don't understand. Why did you give the Torah to him, to me and not him? He's greater than I am. And his response is, shut up. This is how it came out. What do you mean, this is how it came out? What do you mean? What's the next piece? How does he die? Shows him they're getting tortured. Seriously? Seriously? A guy that's such a big tzaddik, a guy that brings all of the Torah to the Jews, this is how you reward it? And God says, shut up, that's how it came up. What do you mean that's how it came up? I'll tell you how. It's actually very simple. You see, history makes perfect sense when you read it backwards. Perfect sense. You read history backwards, no problem. Why was there World War II? Nobody saw it coming. Well, I mean, obviously there was World War II because there was a Versailles Treaty. It was a foregone conclusion. I mean, David Lloyd George, the Prime Minister of Britain knew there would be another World War after what they did to the Germans in the Versailles Treaty. Yeah, but why did the Versailles Treaty happen? Well, that's obvious, because of World War I. It was a foregone conclusion that the powers of Europe would want to screw Germany that bad. Yeah, but why did World War I happen? Well, it's obvious if you look at the geopolitical realities in Serbia and Russia and Eastern Europe at the time. Backwards? Oh, history's good backwards, baby. Forwards? Makes no sense at all. Totally chaotic. Chazor la'achorecha. You see, why was Rabbi Akiva tortured by the Romans? Simple. Because 200 years before, people made decisions. Remember, we live in a world of cause and effect? A very mechanical world we live in. Because 200 years before, people made decisions and did things that brought the Romans into Judea. That's why. And he, Rabbi Akiva, made decisions that kept him learning Torah and spreading Torah. And then other people made different decisions and did different things that would make the Romans very upset at the Jews. So they killed him. What's your question? What's your question? It's not a question. But you'll notice in both times, God says to Moshe, turn around. You have to see it from behind. You will see my back. Ufanai lo yira'u. You won't see my front. You won't see my face. You see these two answers? God said no, and God said yes. They're not arguing. We asked, God said no, didn't explain why, and God said yes, and didn't explain how. Well, yeah, because that's in the other Talmud. Let's think of it again. God said, you can't know beforehand what is going to happen to anybody. Because even if you have the data, you have to have an infinite consciousness. Do you understand? Do you know why that guy got hit by lightning? You know why? I'll tell you why. Very simple. Very simple. Because there was such and such atmospheric pressure at the time. This is what the barometer was reading. And if this atmospheric pressure hits such and such levels, there will be lightning. Yes, but that doesn't explain why he was there. Oh, you want to know why he was there? Because he had a party. Yeah, but why did he go to the party? Because he was invited. I understand the question. He went to the party because he was invited. The lightning happened because that was the pressure. He was standing where the lightning was going to hit. That's why. But see, you only know that backwards, right? You don't know that forwards, you only know backwards. You wait 20 years and everything makes a lot of sense. 20 years later. Forward? You will not see my face. So then how does the other rabbi say, yeah, he saw God's picture, he did see God's face? But don't you remember? God took him out of space and time and showed him the thing backwards. God flipped the screen on Moshe, took him outside of time and said, take a look and you can see. So you see, but why doesn't the Talmud tell us how to do it? Because there is no how. You don't get to see. Moshe got to see on top of the mountain. How does that help you? It doesn't. It doesn't. So it turns out that Moshe is asking a question about the mechanics of the universe. Moshe's question is, I don't understand. I don't understand. How come people who make great decisions still have awful things that happen to them? And he says, oh, great question. Well, I'll tell you why. It depends. Sometimes it's because you were born to the wrong family in the wrong time or in the wrong place. Sometimes it's because you made a silly, silly mistake and put Gronk in the wrong space. Sometimes it's because you were going to a party when the atmosphere hit lightning. You can't know. That you can't know. Only words. Only that. Now notice, be very clear about how the world works, but you know what it doesn't answer? It doesn't answer why bad things happen to people. But I was thinking about the question, and if you'll permit me to say so, the question doesn't make too much sense to me. Why do bad things happen to tall people? You ever wonder that? Why do bad things happen to tall people? I've never wondered because I'm short. Lando's wondered. Why do bad things happen to tall people? You'd say to me, what kind of a question is that? What happens to you has nothing to do with whether you're tall or short. Oh, right. What makes you think what happens to you has anything to do with how good a person you are? Well, because if God made the world, then shouldn't everything happen in total proportion to your actions? Yeah, wrong world, buddy. That's not this world, that's next world. This world and what happens to you in it has nothing to do with how wonderful a person you are. Or how awful a person you are. It has nothing to do with that. Well, why not? Why doesn't it have anything to do with that? It's not the purpose of the world. See, the purpose of the world is not to live a comfortable life, or even a long life. That's not the purpose of the world. The purpose of the world is to become. The purpose of the world is to do, to develop the world throughout history. You think that someone who lives longer versus shorter does more and does better? Nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks that. You think there aren't people who came out of impossible situations, situations like Auschwitz, and made the world amazing? They did not have easy lives. No, sir. But does that make their life less meaningful? I tell you what we all have in common. There's no one that any of us knows in this room or outside of this room who people will remember in 200 years. No one. Zero. Nobody will remember, have any memories, actual memories, of you or anyone you know in 200 years. Here's the good news. It doesn't matter. You know why? Because the effect that you have on the world, will be totally evident in 200 years. The people that are walking around at the time won't know. The little ants that are walking all over the planet Earth will have no idea what your effect was. But he knows. He knows. Tell me something. If a person manages to change the standpoint, the viewpoint, the ideas of one human being, just a little bit, make them a little bit more patient, a little bit more kind, a little bit more caring, a little bit more concerned, a little bit more focused, what are the perot, the fruits of that? You can't begin to fathom the fruits of that. You're going to make a difference in that person, and every person that person comes in contact with, and the children of that person, and the grandchildren of that person. But he won't know, and you won't know, and they won't know. The effect is there. Totally there, and patently obvious, if you're looking backwards. If you're looking backwards, it's right there in front of you. right there the whole time. So yeah, we answered the question before we started the class. If the question is a question of grief, there's no amount of clarity is going to make us happy and not feel sad. Of course we feel sad. Bishatev la'evla. That's appropriate. That's the right way to be. We shouldn't shrug off terrible things and be like, oh, who cares? No, we feel it. And we change because of it, and we push forward because of it. And we try to make things better because of it. And of course we feel it. Bishat cheva cheva. In the time of joy, we're joyous, even though we know that nothing lasts forever. In the time of joy, we have joy. Because that's the appropriate thing to do as well, to move the world. That's why. And it doesn't make you any more glad, any less pain, at all. At all. That's what the Gemara is teaching us. It's about clarity, it's about understanding the mechanics of the world. And guess what? We only know backwards. So, Shlomo should add it all together. I'm done. You can take sushi.
Can we take questions?
Oh yes, of course we'll take questions if there are questions. Absolutely. This was exceedingly clear. No one has any questions. Not muddled in the least. Yes.
When closing the Torah about the future of what events is going to happen.
Yes.
Why
does it tell
We're
us?
not supposed to basically see the future.
It's not saying that you shouldn't see the future. It's saying that you don't have an ability to see the future. So whenever you have nivu'ah, whenever you have prophecy in the Torah, what you're really dealing with, and Rambam talks about this in Hilchot Teshuvah when he talks about that, you're dealing with patterns. So for example, I'll give you this is a metaphor that my uncle brings down in one of his books. I think it's fantastic. He says, we know what the half-life is for atoms. So like we can look at space station. It doesn't matter what kind of atoms, the atoms that are non-yin or the atoms in lead. Okay, now you know that in 30,000 years, half of these atoms will deteriorate. You know that. Definitively, to the decimal. You know precisely how many of those atoms will be gone. You know what you don't know? Which ones. Which ones? That you can't know. Right? So you're dealing with patterns. So the Rambam explains that when God tells Abraham, actually in this week's parsha we're going to read on Shabbat, on Parshat Lech Lecha, when they have the covenant between the parts, and God says to Abraham, he says, your children are going to be slaves in a foreign land. So the Rambam says, well, I don't understand. If you enslave the Jews, you could be like, hey, God told me to. No, he didn't. He did not tell you to. He said it would happen inevitably. The pattern will dictate that this is inevitable. Who will do it? That's on you. That's on you. So you can know the future if he tells it to you, but again, it's patterns that will have to manifest in a specific kind of way. That's it? Yeah.
I think part of the world population acts right with the hope that the first of the assumptions is correct, meaning I'll do the right thing because I don't want any bad things to happen to me.
Right.
And what happens if you just eliminate that hypothesis from the world's population? How you convince people to do the right thing if there's no correlation?
Well, it depends what motivates you in life. If what motivates you in life, and this is the truth about many religious people, right? Like, well, if I give tzedakah, then God will give me a lot of money. And if I'm nice to people, God will give me a beautiful shidduch, right? And all that stuff. And you know what? It's sometimes true, and it's sometimes not true. But again, that's not the purpose of the world at all. The purpose of the world is an ongoing relationship with creation. We are part of the history of the world. Here's a simple example of this. When we talk about the Torah, when we say the Torah is a history book, that's true and not true. It's not a book of historical events that happened. It's a book of history. The history of the world, from Big Bang until closing time, which means that we are actively part of creation. We are moving the world forward at all times. That's a tremendous responsibility and a tremendous opportunity. So we can use it to drop nuclear bombs on each other, or we can use it to make a utopia, a place of love, a place of care. We can do either one. That's our legacy. It's up to us. So that's what the world is about. The world isn't about whether or not I drive a nice car. That's not what it's about.
But you say that our actions don't have repercussions in this world, but they do have repercussions in the
Yes, correct.
So, if we take out that hypothesis that, like you were saying, that we might, would encourage us to be good, if we know that there's a world to come, and
yes.
that's what would encourage us to be good.
So that's a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Mishnah in Pirkei Avot says that we should not do mitzvot in order to get a prize. That's not what it's about. The Rambam says, "Oseh ha'emet mipnei shehu emet." You do the truth because it's true, because that's what you're there for. Can you imagine the excitement if you're a bird and you know you're a bird? You know how fun that must be? Like, oh my God, I'm a bird and this is awesome and I know my purpose in the universe. You know why people are miserable? Because we have no idea what we're doing here. We have no clue why we're here, so we're miserable. It's like the pressure is stifling. The pressure is stifling. And it doesn't matter how good your life is, right? The most famous, rich, beautiful people on the planet Earth are overdosing left and right. Why? Because they're struggling with the same thing that our teenagers are struggling with. Like, what the heck is the meaning of all this? If you were a bird, very easy. I'm a bird, I feel glorious. But that means that if you do figure it out, you know why you're here, and you can own that and be that and manifest that, can you imagine the joy? Can you imagine the joy of seeing your part and purpose in the universe? You go click and the whole thing just opens for you? That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. So I don't think it's supposed to be about, well, I'm going to get a prize, or I'll get this, or I'll get that. No, it's about right here, right now, and being. Be. It's amazing. Now, again, does it have repercussions later? 100%. 100%. But it's about now.
Of course it's about now, but for those people that are wondering, what, if I do this.
So for them we can have a class on Olam Haba. Yes?
Okay, so what about it's not that good because if God knows that you're going to do mistake, there's no shukatu.
What does reshut mean?
Reshut, He gives us, but He doesn't give us anything because He knows that you're not going to do it. Or you're going to do it. So it just comes.
Right, good. So what you're asking the age-old contradiction between God's omniscience and your free will. If God knows what I'm going to do, then am I choosing it? That's the question, right? And it seems like a very, very good question. And I thought it was a very good question. I didn't understand it until I used to watch Full House when I was a kid. And, true story, we only had two. I can say this because my father will never watch the video. We only had 2 channels on our Fakaka TV. It wouldn't spring for cable, it was awful. But like a few of the shows that I could watch, I watched Family Matters with Urkel, that was really cool, and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was great, and we had Full House. So Full House, that's the people who are in jail now for messing with that. So here's what happens. There's this episode where Uncle Joey is watching a basketball game with Michael Jordan. You guys remember Michael Jordan, right? You know, LeBron before LeBron. So he's watching the Bulls game, and then Uncle Jesse walks in the room, and Jesse's the cooler uncle. He knows more about basketball than Joey. Joey's kind of a nerd. And Uncle Jesse's like, oh, I bet you Jordan's going to do this or that. He's going to dribble twice and pass. And Joey's like, no, I think he's going to pump fake twice and do a turnaround jump shot fadeaway. It's going to be swish. And Jesse's like, you're crazy, man. He goes, well, I'll bet you $5. Done. Sure enough, triple pump fake, turns around, 360, turnaround jump shot fadeaway swish. Uncle Jesse's like, wow, that's amazing. And he takes out $5 to give it to Joey. And in walks, I think it was DJ, and she's like, Uncle Joey, you're watching that game again? Now, so here's the thing. And it took a second. So here's the thing. That Full House episode explained to me that question. You see, when Joey's watching Michael Jordan in that screen, is he forcing Michael Jordan to do that? No. But he knows he's going to do it. How does he know? Because he's outside of that time and space. He's outside of that dimension. So for him, I know precisely what he's going to do with no effect whatsoever on his choice.
He's going,
Yeah.
because he's not here, he's not literally here.
Correct.
And he's not
It's not limited by your time and space.
right, and
Yeah.
it's not really good bad or also. It's all us.
Yes, it's all us.
He gave us life,
Yep.
and we are not getting, paid or anything like that. I think as a soul, we come here and we have lessons to learn. And the moment we are finishing the lesson, we just go. Either we bang, take our pen, and either we finish the lesson. That's what I think. And then the next time we come back, we have more lessons. Now, as much
Again,
as we're gonna
that's
learn
maybe,
here,
maybe, maybe.
as much
Maybe.
as much as we're gonna learn here, it's gonna help us the next time.
Could be.
And if we have a bad life, I don't know, or good life, we're gonna know more. Because we're here to
Right.
discuss every job, every person that comes to our life, he comes to teach us something. I don't know what. Maybe it's not gonna stay, but he comes to teach us something.
Yeah, I agree. Remember, backwards it becomes clear.
That's why I don't believe it's going to I don't believe in
Oh, that's a whole nother
I
shear.
don't believe that.
One shear at a
I
time.
believe that God is good, He's just good. And we are here, we don't do the right thing. We assuming that, we take that and we do this. No. God is not involved. He gave us life, He showed us the way.
We have to talk and have another share about that.
That's the way.
Yeah, that's the
And that's the
deal.
way.
Deal.
We want to do it.
Deal.
And then, we're not going to punish them. Along the way.
Maybe. Maybe. We have to examine that. We have to examine that. Done? Chevre, Laila Tov.